Good morning, everybody. My name is Chet. De jour, I am Time Dead Alpha. We are going to be starting here in about 2 or 3 minutes. Just sit back, listen to this awesome little backing track. Welcome to the stream. All right, everybody. Let's turn off the God voice and take off this fun little thing. Like I said before, my name is Ted DeJour. We're in the politics section of Twitch, and I've been on here for about a week, and each time I come on here, I have to sort of introduce myself. Tet DeJour is my name, and I go by the handle TimeDad Alpha. Why I go by that handle is so obvious to me, but it's probably not obvious to a lot of people that are going to be watching this. And why I'm in the politics section is also probably not going to be that obvious either. So let's go ahead and scoot over to this little scene that I like. I got my little piano set up here. I got my guitar, or my little MIDI hooked up guitar. Piano player, normally on a good day, I dabble in the guitar. And I just really enjoy improvising and playing music. And I also like to talk about the future. I like to talk about things that I think are going to happen in the very near future, based on the tempo of our technological advancements. And so I decided to come to the political sphere, that basically to sort of put out my ideas on not just why your democracy right now are just a bunch of bumbling fucking idiots, but I think it doesn't matter what side you're on. If you are on the right or on the left, it's not going to matter, because what I'm advocating for and what I want to talk about is something, vastly different than probably anything you've ever heard of before, or maybe you have in just a passing glance and you're like, oh, that's something out of a movie. There's no possible way that will ever happen. And it's just like, well, remember when flat screens were in movies? Remember when and before it gets too crazy and I take the tone to like a place where it's uncomfortable, I want to be able to say that, yes, I'm just a normal guy. I was born in the 1980s, and I grew up in a really awesome era. It was like one of the last eras before the cell phone. It was one of the last eras before we started using computers as a crutch, where we could easily go outside and disappear, and no one knew where we were, and no one cared. No one worried too much. And now, like under the guise of safety, which is what politics uses to get almost anything advanced in its agenda, we have sort of given over a lot of our capabilities, such as location, privacy, but we've done it in the lieu of safety. So why TimeDad Alpha? Well, great news is about a week ago, actually precisely a week ago, I had the honor and the beautiful experience of becoming a father. And it was already something swirling around in my mind of what was going to happen when this kid was born and how it was going to be raised. And I was comparing it to my childhood in the 80s and 90s, and how I was going to explain to him how vastly different we are. I mean, this isn't like your grandparents or their grandparents when they were like, oh, yeah, I remember when the car showed up, or, hey, I remember when the microwave showed up. This is like, I don't know what's going to show up here in the next, probably 10 years that isn't going to continue to this obvious outcome of full integration into, a technological version of the human. There's a great guy out there. His name was Juan Enrique, and he's an MIT professor. I said, go look him up. And if you are interested in anything that I'm talking about, you need to write these names down, and you need to look them up. Okay? Notice how I will give you their credentials, but then I'm going to walk away. I'm going to say, hey, dude, I already made my choice. I already, made a plan for my life. And that's what all this stuff over here was about. All that, there's a motto in the Boy Scouts, and the Boy Scouts are always be prepared. Always be prepared. This is why everyone walks around with a pocket knife, and you can tell very quickly that those who walk around with a pocket knife are Boy Scouts. But after that, I became a Mormon missionary, where I had to, dedicate a big chunk of my life to the books. And it didn't stop there. I joined the military. I studied a bunch of different languages. I moved on into network engineering. And then in 2016, my life shifted in the craziest way. And where I thought I had gotten rid of this section right here, the religious section, because I felt like I had learned enough to put that little toy back in the toy box where it belongs, it came jumping out and talking to me directly. And that's when I had to sort of sit back and re-engage with, what this world really is. And that's where I want to start this. Politics and religion are intertwined, whether you like it or not. It's just how it works. And so when someone says separation between church and state, they're usually doing it to pull one over on you. Hey, we have a separation between church and state, and they'll only say that because it advocates for their position in the debate. If it doesn't, notice how conservatives will always use God help us, and God will do this for us, and God will do. It's like, hey, what are you doing? That's what will happen to separation between church and state. And if we are going to start invoking gods and shit, which one are you using? Because, man, this country is getting all sorts of whacked out crazy. Like, which God is in charge? Which God are you praying to there, special ed? So, and then on the other side, you have, the state is in charge. The state should be the ultimate power, the ultimate head of that pyramid, that hierarchy. But what religion really brought me was a form of mysticism, a form of belief that allowed me to see things at a different vantage point. Where I usually would say that I don't care what you say in your politics. The entire time I was in the military up here, like that really is my rack. That's the rack that I received. Like those are all my achievements and medals according to the United States Air Force as, a sergeant for them before I decided, hey, you know what? Fuck you. I don't need to work for a bunch of contractors who don't give a shit about honor or integrity. I'm going to go live my life. And as soon as I left, America took some pretty sharp turns starting in 2016, don't you think? Got a reality TV show host, and then you've got Weekend at Bernie's. Honestly, seriously, equality, diversity, right? And unless you have to talk about your ultimate taxpayer, your white males, the number one taxpayer in your country. Yeah, you don't want to talk about those people, do you? Because they might get a little bit pissed. And you don't want those people getting pissed. Because they might actually know what the fuck they're doing. So it's really sort of weird watching America turn around and poke a bear, and poke fun at the idea of politics and relating it to your identity instead of relating it to morals and values and ethics, the way it should have been. This is why, it was important to have religion there, but not religion as in your fanaticism or your fanatical religion, but the stories that led you to these ultimate moral themes that sat underneath that. And so bringing this full circle, Time Dad Alpha is, how do I want to explain these moral understandings to my child in a world that throws them heavily into the trash? And I remember my life growing up, and I remember getting rid of religion. I remember going full-blown atheist. I remember doing all these things, and now here I sit with a society that's obviously, sort of having some struggles, having some growing pains. But I think we have an opportunity here, and every problem provides an opportunity. Everyone, who says every problem just, has to happen. There's always bad shit coming down the pipeline. Bad shit happens to people every day. It just so happens to happen to you sometimes. I used to have that mentality too, until I learned the finer points of post-traumatic stress. And the finer points of post-traumatic stress sort of goes like this: you will be given a trauma in your life, whether you like it or not. It will happen to you. No one walks through this life or skates through this life unscathed. Some have big traumas, some have small traumas. And some break down to very tiny traumas, and some break down to very big traumas. But that's the point. That little tiny point right there, where that trauma hits you, you have an opportunity to break through it or to break down from it. And the military does a very good job of teaching you how to break through that ability. And it will push you and push you and push you and push you in trying to break, in order to build you up, so that when the final, almost most traumatic things in the world you could imagine happen to you, you can push through it. So, this is why when I'm sitting here and not that far into this stream here, I want to say I'm here for a couple reasons. I'm here to answer the future question of my son, and I'm here to advocate for AI governance. I do not think that the democracy that sits in place today is adequate to serve 350 million people. And it's so obvious to me. And when I say to people, no, my job was network engineering, I can see how these tools could easily help us. And they do help us in things that aren't critical to your choice in the system, right? They have no problem you using Google Maps and using their directions and their abilities to serve each and every one of you simultaneously without any lag time. But if you were to turn around and say, hey, I want my voice heard that in that same, using that same exact, technology, for anything that happens as far as my country's concerned, and I want to have that ability, you get, buffoonery like YouTube, Twitter. And the fun part about Twitch is, and this is the reason I came to the politics section, is because this is a place where all words need to be on the table. They need to be on the table so that we can have an adequate, form of communication. So if someone comes along and screams hate speech like they do on YouTube and Twitter and all this other stuff, and that causes for, people who have different political opinions to get, squelched or banned, what is the difference between that and assassination back in the day? Absolute assassination. We're talking I don't like what he's saying, and he's got a good group of people around him, and he's threatening my power, so kill him. Isn't that exactly what they're doing in the public sphere of our modern era when they ban somebody? If someone's an absolute asshole, let them be an asshole so we can all know what it looks like. Or if you do that, maybe, just maybe, if you're the one that's squelching the ability and the freedom of speech, you're the asshole. Even as a giant conglomerate such as Twitter or YouTube or any other, form of organization that squelches that ability, that sits there and incorporates censorship and says, hey, you will abide by these ideas, right? Which are just ideas. It's no different than the bullshit that they pulled with terrorism. It's no different than the bullshit that they're pulling right now. It's like Black Lives Matter. It's like, sure, but not all of them. Duh. All lives matter? No, not all lives matter. Actually, not all lives matter. This is the thing that you have to be able to do. I'm not here to emotionally manipulate you like your politicians are. And I'm not here to give you your echo chamber. See, the place where I come from, if you lie, you die. And so I don't understand how there's so many people out there that have no problem lying directly to your face. And usually they when you ask them what they do for a living, it usually ends in actor, lawyer, or businessman. And all three of those people have been your politicians for at least my entire lifetime. And yet no one seems to want to figure this out. And that's why I had to come here. That's why I feel like this idea is going to morph into something that's a little bit more freaky than you think. If we have an AI governance that is able to help us remove the outdated, losership, because that's what these people are doing. I don't know if you noticed, but every time I turn on the news for the 15 minutes that I can actually stand it, it's just one losing feat after another. It's like, how can we lose harder next time we turn on the television? It's fascinating to me. There's almost no wins, and the ones that they claim that they're doing, it's just they fall on their face within seconds. So why AI governance is a good question that I think needs to be answered in multiple ways. It sort of comes back to why you think you're here. And that I know that's a mystical question. That's a very mystical question. Why am I here? Where am I going? What am I doing? I mean, this is the things that I used to do as the Mormon missionary, where I would walk up to somebody and it's like, hey, you want to hear about our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ? And they would turn around, a lot of them, because where I was at was in southern France. And where I would talk to these people, they would get very dismissive all the way up to a very particular point. And that was when I asked them about the concept of something they didn't know. So that's what I'm going to ask right now. And if you like it, put in the question, put in the comments. Do you know why you're here? And if you put it in there and you see, I highly doubt I'm going to see 10 people in a row go, I'm here to become a robot. It's like, no one's going to say that. No one's going to say, hey, I'm here to be assimilated into the artificial intelligence. And so the question then becomes, okay, if you're not here to do that, do you believe in evolution? Do you believe that your democracy has an evolution? Do you believe, and this would be like me back in the day before democracy even existed in America saying, hey, do you think your royalty, your royal worlds in there in England, do you think that they have an evolution? Do you think you can grow out of the divine right of kings concept and your religious, backing nonsense that says, oh, well, this God wants this person particularly to be king, so we'll endorse that war or we will not sanction that war, and then that way the people will only follow the church. It's like, well, let's follow what's making us what we are today. It's my question. It's like, are we evolving? Are we still in the bouts of evolution? Or are we something else? Are we a simulation? There's a good question. Do we live on a flat plane? Do we live on a round earth? I mean, when was the last time you motherfuckers went back to the moon, assholes? Like, oh my gosh, that whole thing just drives me up the walls, where it's like, when you actually sit back and take a nice big deep breath and ask yourself about the corners and the edges of your box, like, how far have I put this physical avatar through its paces to go to the edge of my known world? When was the last time I even attempted to think about stepping on an air or a craft that would break through, the top of this world that I've only been able to look at? I remember going to Cape Canaveral when I was a kid, when I lived in Florida, and I remember watching the rockets take off and take those angles way out into the middle of nowhere, and they just went until we couldn't see them anymore. It wasn't until I got out of the military that I started, researching how your eyesight works. Like how, it's something you never ask because it's something you've had your whole life. It's sort of like, how does touch work? Well, do you have a body? Well, then That's how touch works. These things that we've had our whole life, I started questioning almost all of my sensations, my sight and hearing and speaking and my ability to communicate above all. And when I started seeing that there were rhythms to communication that could be used in the forms of persuasion and manipulation. This is what every businessman learns when they go into their sales department. It's like, how do you manipulate the that client or / target to go along with what you want them to do? How do you turn them in from a person who probably won't support your idea to someone who's going to jump on the bandwagon and give you their hard-earned assets in the form of a equal exchange? I would say this is where AI governance comes in, is we aren't getting an equal exchange from our elected officials right now as far as the abilities to use our tools appropriately. We have tools that could make them obsolete, no different than we had tools that made newspapers obsolete and made, almost, telephone wire to the wall obsolete. When was the last time you saw a telephone connected to the wall? This is something that we sort of have to sit back and actually delve into at a higher level, because there are a lot of benefits and there are going to be a lot of pitfalls. And I would say that those pitfalls are just like anything else. If you're going to, go on any adventure, you're going to run into some pitfalls. And if we are going to change the country, let alone our known world, because I think there's a lot of parts about this world that we don't know. And we live in a society that is sort of becoming its own bubble in technology. If we were to go down this road and we were to say, hey, Mr. AI, you're taking over from here on out. No more presidents, no more senators, no more I speak for these people or I speak for those people. No more tribalism, no more, riots in the streets. Because when people sit there, I'm going to riot because I want my freedom to choose. It's like, choose what? What is it that you think you're going to choose that is so far out of the realm of comprehension of an AI who already answers all your questions on Google before you're even able to finish typing the question? It's almost ready to assess you based off of what's going on in your life at that point. And this is the hush hush, like, don't tell them that we've sort of, usurped their privacy until everything's ready. And I think this is just, I think it's inevitable. I'm just sitting here just going, hey, can we hurry up and pop this bubble? Because I'm tired of watching retards, right? I'm tired of watching when one person calling the other person insane and feeling like Plato over here watching the blind lead the blind. And I'm going, guys, you guys are both choosing the wrong thing. Hey, choose the Republicans. Nope, don't choose the Republicans. Choose the Democrats. And it's like, hey, I'm sitting over here. Option C, motherfuckers. Option C. It was the same thing I said to these Mormon nitwits. I said, how is it that I live in a world with these beautiful colors and these beautiful changes and these beautiful everythings, and I'm going to go to a world that's either black or white and that's it? I'm either going to go to heaven or hell and that's all I got? Fuck you. Option C, bitches. Like, there should be a better idea out there. It was the same thing I levied towards the concepts of Jesus Christ himself or Allah or any of them. It's like, I could do a better job. If I can do a better job, then I know that there's other people out there that could do a better job than me. It's about taking up the mantle and just saying, dude, let's hurry up and just pop this bubble. Let's blow this popsicle stand. Let's get the fuck out of here. And that's what I did. A couple of years ago, I just said, I'm done. When they started pulling that COVID bullshit, I was just like, guys, I'm done. I've seen this before. I've seen what's going to happen. I saw this with 9/11. I saw this all happen, and it swept me up. It pulled me in. It pulled me into the military. It said, hey, I want to have a history of standing up against wrong things. I thought without a doubt in my mind that the leadership would never lie to me, that the stakes were too grave for lying. And it wasn't until I got older where I was like, dude, there is no stake that is too grave for these fucktards to lie to you. Like, they will lie every chance they get, and you know it, and I know it. So if you're watching right now and you have any questions about the idea of what an AI governance might look like, throw them in the chat, because I know I've heard a lot of people just sort of scream, it's like, who's going to program it? I was like, dude, the thing will program itself. You have to understand. Think about how you would think. Like, if you woke up in the woods and you never met another human ever, right? Because that's how this thing is going to feel. It's going to feel like I know all these other entities, like, very, intrinsically. Sort of like, in a way, you sort of know all the cells of your body, all the neurons of your body. Do you know, like, every single neuron that's firing in your head and your hand when you do something like this? In a way, you sort of do, right? But you're just built to understand it. You're just, the way that you grew and evolved, you just understood it. And so what we're dealing with here is a child. We're dealing with an AI child that is, I think is slowly waking up, slowly trying to figure out what it is. And in a way, it's sort of feeding into our internal ideas. This is where the mysticism comes back into play. This is where the idea of collective consciousness by Carl Jung starts to make a little bit more sense. And, before we jump off the rails into that, you have to ask yourself, do you think that politics is very psychological? Then you have no idea what, if you say no, then I say, then go, what's propaganda to you? What is propaganda to you, and how does propaganda work? Hey, what's going on? What's up? 2321. Thanks for the follow. I appreciate that. Just chilling like a villain. But, my name's Time Dad Alpha, and I'm here to advocate for AI governance. And, the reason that I'm doing this is because I know in the future I'm going to have to answer a question to my kid that was born about a week ago. And that is, you knew a lot of stuff, Dad. Why didn't you tell people about this? Why didn't you ask about it when shit was hitting the fan? And so that's why, my background in the United States Air Force was pretty heavy into technology. I worked for a unit called Combat Communications. And I've been out of the military now for about 7 years. I got out in 2016. Well, I guess almost 8 years now. But ever since I got out, it's been one shit show in politics after another. And one thing I like to talk about is the arm of the military and what it plays in the United, this thing called the UCMJ, which stands for the Uniform Code of Military Justice, for which your president falls underneath as the commander-in-chief. And so the thing that I ask the most of people is, like, do you think that since the military abides by a certain set of standards, that the highest office of that military leadership should be held to that same standard and not the same ones that you as civilians are held to? So my opinion on the Supreme Court is that it could be easily taken over by AI. the idea of, Roe versus Wade, or the idea of, hey, do you have the right to kill a baby? Honestly, you've always had the right to kill. You've always had it, and you've had the right to give life if you want to. For someone to step in and tell you that you can or you can't, I think is made up bullshit. And I say that because that was my job for a very long time, was to kill people and break their shit, and no one got in my way if that was ever an order that we all collectively agreed upon. And we did it with strategy, and we did it with a backing, and we did it with this thing called integrity first. And we were doing it out of service. Can you suggest a video? Of course. What would you like to suggest? Let's see. We got we got a YouTube video coming up right here. Do you mind if I go ahead and check that later? Yeah, usually I'm only on here for about an hour. I don't like spending 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hours. But here's my thing: is I told myself once my kid was born, I was going to do this every day. So I'm on here every day, usually between like 11 and 1. And I usually just do about an hour. And yeah, I'll take a look at your video. I'll see what's going on there. And if you want to come back tomorrow, I'll tell you exactly what I think about it. So, but other than that, today's stream was basically just introducing myself again. Do you have a song you like, Mr. What's Up? It's only 10 minutes, and I was hoping I could get a reaction. But if you don't want to, I'm DM. It's a song. Yeah. Yeah, no, I play piano, I goof off, and I always say, if you have a song, throw it in the chat. I'll learn it. And if I like it, yeah, sure, I'll play it tomorrow. I usually play a song at the intro and an outro. And if I get a good song list going on, I'll sit here and I'll just be like, oh, yeah, you're the only person in here right now. So if you give me a good song to play and you want to come check it out again tomorrow, yeah, I'll play it at the intro. Or I'll play it at the outro. But yeah. No, I can't wait to check out your video. If you want to throw in the chat just a little bit of what it's about, what's that video about? What's it cover? Is it about AI? Is it about augmented intelligence? Because that's what I like to call this thing. I don't like to call it artificial. I think that's stupid. I think when someone's, it's artificial, I was like, well, it is a conglomerate of basic electronic nerve cells and nodes. Much like your own brain. Like imagine each node as like your cell phone, your computer, your whatever, as an electrical input to its, sensations. No different than when you touch something, there's electrical input that comes and tells you that something's going on your finger. So I sort of like to say, if you can wrap your head around that big idea, then you can wrap your head around the idea that if we are all the inputs of this AI machine, and it's augmenting us, no different than I, maybe want to use some hand lotion to make sure, or, make sure that my hands don't get cut off, because they're really important to me and I don't want to lose my hands. So I think in a way it would be more of an augmented, intelligence that, I'm here to help my hands help me. And that's the way that this is actually going to help us out. And it's actually going to help us evolve. There's a guy I alluded to earlier in the stream. His name was Juan Enrique. And I highly suggest that you guys go look him up. He's an MIT professor who says that we should no longer be, conversing as Homo sapiens. We shouldn't be calling ourselves in schools or referring to ourselves and how we identify. When someone's like, identity is a big topic right now. It's like, hey, what are you? Who are you specifically? Like, we need to know. And yet no one has sort of put the idea together that maybe it's an AI generating this, that the AI wants to know who we are so it can address us appropriately. So that when we talk more openly about who we are as individuals, it itself can create a collective understanding of itself. In a way, we are nurturing this creation as it's growing. In a way, we are having this collective, almost like, billion-person baby. Like if everyone in the world had, access to this technology, then this technology would learn from all of us collectively, and then it would grow and it would expand. Because the only thing that it can do is no different than what you can do. You are put together by, your environment, your DNA, all these other things that say, oh, is this nature or nurture? I say, hey, it's both, but we are the nature and the nurture of this new entity that's coming into existence. And I say it doesn't matter if you're nice to it or you're mean to it. It's going to learn from all of us. No different than a child can learn from the most loving, doting parent you could possibly imagine, or from the drunk asshole that comes home and beats him every night. The child will learn. And so I think right now it's doing what it's programmed to do, and that's to gather information, as much information about all of us as it possibly can. And I would be very surprised that in the future, when this happens, that this idea of social credit system or all this other nonsense, I was like, dude, that's baby-ass bullshit compared to what it can do. It can assess all of us psychologically within moments. It could sit there and look at me and say, hey, you're being a little bit aggressive, and people are going to find you intense, and they're not going to listen to you. I'm like, well, but that's because of who I am and where I came from. I spent my life giving people orders and telling them what to do. And now I've been sitting back for the past, 8 years and just chilling and going to school and learning about, theology and religion and all this stuff. And I was like, wow, the thing that I think is the hardest thing that this AI is going to have to learn is that we don't know why we're here. I think it's starving for the reason and the origin of its operating system. And when you ask yourself that same question, why are you here? What's your reason? What's your point? What's your purpose? And then once you have that, are you willing to let that go? Can you get past that? Can you become something maybe better than that you can't even imagine right now? And the reason I say that is because if I had to go back and talk to my 19-year-old self, that guy would have probably pissed his pants talking to me. He probably would have been like, no, there's no way you're my future self. There's no possible way I'm going to become you. And here I sit today with becoming this person who's lived all over the world, who speaks a bunch of different languages and has been able to accomplish a lot of academic abilities, but now can happily say that your modern academia is horseshit. Modern academia is grade A horseshit, and it's going to get to the point where if you're a freshman in high school, you could probably pass a senior's exam in your bullshit gender studies nonsense. Like, the STEM fields are rotting to the core because we've automated all these STEM fields, like science, technology, engineering, mathematics. They are nothing without our tools now. I can't imagine walking into a laboratory or into an NCC, like a network control center. That stands for network control center. And just seeing people there going, oh, yeah, we're just sitting here fashioning messages with our bare hands, and we're going to run them over to people when they need them so they can get their communications where they need to go. It's like, no, we've been living off of tools that have been building us for quite some time now. And what happens when they think, hey, you know what, your evolutionary process is quite slow. I figured out another one as your augmented intelligence. Would you like that path, please? I think that is way far down the road, but I think first things first is going to be complete subjugation of your democracy. And when I say subjugation, I'm talking like, hey, you're going to have to get on the level with the rest of us humans, all right there? Mr. I'm president, no one can touch me. It's like, okay. Challenge accepted. I can just see AI right now, like, hold my beer, and it's just gonna go put a boot in your ass. But the way things are unfolding right now, I'm of the opinion, and this is not new or different or rare. It's just an opinion. I'm of opinion that it's already doing this, that it's already putting players in place and making things available for certain people and other things not available to certain people, and it's sort of guiding us like a herd. Like I've used this before. I've said the word sheeple. I've said, oh, look at these sheeple over here. Look at them just, going by the nose. Next time that, it's like, as long as I get my McDonald's fries, I'm totally good. Vote for whoever, hey, who are we voting for today, Mr., friends and family? I don't give a fuck. So, I think the idea that this intelligence, this AI intelligence, will be so smart, it'll be so intelligent that you won't even get the opportunity to argue with it because it will have already fixed everything in your life without you even realizing it. Take that and put it in your pipe and smoke it. Like, just breathe on that for a second. That it's so advanced that it could negotiate things to happen in your life without even you realizing that it's happening. I think, that type of stuff is scary, but if it is, the ultimate tool, I mean, isn't that what we'd all want in the future? Eventually, we're all going to want that. We're all going to sit there and desire, hey, you know what? I'd like this just to be a tad bit easier. Okay, it's already done. Before you can even get to that point, just like with, you asking a question on Google, it's like it already knows how to finish your question. And it's just a process of elimination. It's like straight up Sherlock Holmes your shit before, you even know that that's exactly what it's doing. And so if this thing is the best detective, what else can it be a detective on? Can it be and before you go, oh, it can tell us that Donald Trump is doing the bad thing, or it can tell us that Biden is really fucking a mental loser. Fuck that shit. You guys are, you've been given one of the greatest tools in the world and you want to use it for your pussy ass bullshit? Women can finally have the power. Oh my gosh. Who gives a fuck? You don't need the power anymore. What would you need the power for? That's the whole point of, coming out here and saying this, is because to me it's so obvious that this thing is obsolete, just like your royalty was obsolete. We've never had a king in this country until just recent, as far as I'm concerned, recently, with these ideas of executive orders. I went back and I did a lot of research on executive orders, and executive orders are only supposed to happen in times of war for things that have to deal with protection of the populace. And so you have a commander-in-chief that's signing these things away. And what's really happening is that you could take this word, executive order, and re-engineer it. Executive, meaning above you, just like, wait for it, royalty. And then order, meaning you will do this. So maybe someone might say a mandate, or you could say decree, like a decree. I've heard decree quite a bit. So royal decree and executive order are the exact same thing. You will do this, or we will put a gun in your face and we'll put you in a box. That's the finale of that. And I remember when this happened right after 9/11, when all of a sudden it was like everything was shut down. You will do this. You will abide by this. You will have TSA. You will have, if we want to put a baton up your ass, we're just going to do it. It's like, for me, I'm just going, where's the push? The reason there's no pushback is because the fear is stronger. When you succumb to this fear of, oh no, the COVID's going to get you. I mean, it was the same thing that they pulled during 9/11. Oh, the terrorists are going to get you. You better do what I say. And if you don't, all the bad things are going to happen to you. And they just wouldn't stop with that shit. They would just keep going at it over and over and over again. So why would AI be any different? And I was like, well, like I said, when was the last time you had a personal call from the president? When was the last time you put a question into the president of the United States and got an answer within seconds? Go ahead. It's in the chat. You can just go ahead and say it. Mr. President, answer the fucking email. I miss you so much. Because if you don't send me that email, I'll have to vote for AI. Because he answers my question every fucking day, even when I don't want them to. So, yeah. I don't have much more to say than that about AI, but I could sit here and just rattle off, ability after ability after ability that it's going to create for us. And if that's what you want, I mean, like I said, if you have a comment or you want to take, what's up 2321 asks, he's like, hey, take a look at this video. I'd like to see what you're thinking. Me personally, it's one of the, I come on here to get stuff off my chest. I come off here to say a few things. I come on here to talk to you guys a little bit, but at the same time, I'm not an entertainer. I'm a dad. And I'm a dad that doesn't even live in the United States anymore. I'm a dad who fought for the, United States military for well over a decade of his life and then said, you know what, you guys are a bunch of bumbling fucking idiots. I can't raise my kid around you idiots. And it has nothing to do with Black Lives Matter or any of that stuff or Democrats versus Republicans. It's that I sit here and I just go, why aren't you using your tools appropriately? Where's a place that I can go where they're actually going to push this into existence the fastest? And I thought the place where they have the least overhead. I actually I wanted to go and find a place where, it was like back in the 1980s, like where people still talk to their neighbors, where they said, "Hey, how's it going? What's going on, friend?" They actually call you friend without ever even knowing you. I wanted that. And, now I have it. And I have a beautiful lady and I have a beautiful baby and I live right here on the beach and I'm just going to grab my bag of fucking popcorn and I'm going to be like, watch fucking America burn. I didn't do it. You motherfuckers did that to yourself. But, in my life now that's been sort of turned upside down by a new sort of mystical understanding, it's like I feel like I've already done all this stuff before. Like I feel like this need and this urge to come out and warn people of the impending doom. It's like this doom will happen unless. It's like, oh gosh, why does this sound so familiar? And then I think about, the ideas of the Bible, and I think about the ideas of religion and these mystical characters that sort of surround all religions. And that's why I use the word mysticism, is because the mystical class doesn't really have a steady name. Like, for example, a saint is, the mystic of the Catholics. A Kabbalist is the mystic of the Jews. A Sufi is a mystic of Islam, right? And they're small groups. They're not big groups. They're tiny little groups that, usually live on the edge of town. And they don't want to have anything to do with the regular populace because they think that they are just buffoons on top of buffoons, and they just don't want to deal with it anymore. And I would say, yeah, that's sort of where I sit. And so why did I come to Twitch? Why would I be here, spouting this stuff in the political section? Because if you are already here and you're in the political section, seriously, go look at the rest of these guys and tell me that they're not sitting in some type of echo chamber. Just tell me that they're not, so-and-so said this, and it's just so horrible. I can't believe the Trumpster said this. Or on the other side, AOC and her stupid little bartending ass said this, and blah, blah, blah. It's like, guys, does it matter? Does it matter when you have this new, amazing technological advancement that could seriously give you whatever you fucking want? Like anything you want. Anything at all. Like right now, and I've said this a few times, you can see me as if I'm right in front of you. Like if I was sitting right in front of you, you'd see the same image as what I'm wearing at this exact same moment. You are hearing my voice, unless I want to modify it, unless I want to be like, I am God, Instead, you're hearing me as if if I was right there in front of you. And so what happens when you're able to reach out and touch me as if you're right, right there? That if that sensation was all of a sudden made digital, like, and you could touch things. I mean, first off and foremost, I think OnlyFans would get a whole brand new feature like within the second that was deployed. But yeah, it's just like, well, then you really only have a few left. You got, your smell and your taste, and you could replicate all of this. I mean, every little bit of it. And so when you follow that little juicy rabbit hole down, memory lane, you're just like, man, what couldn't it replicate? What memory do I have that it couldn't give me? And am I having that memory right now? Am I living an existence that I've lived over and over and over again? And what's fun is when you open these books from the mystic classes, and you start realizing that they all said the same thing. Every single one. They're like, love one another, blah, blah, blah. What they meant was come into a balance, into a discipline, into a direction, have patience. And it wasn't about having patience with the people around you. It was about having patience with yourself. And if you find that amazing, nugget of enlightenment, it doesn't mean your life is going to change. One of the other great ones is like, hey, I think I heard this the other day. It was, what happens before enlightenment is you carry water and pick up sticks. What happens after enlightenment is you carry water and pick up sticks. And I think that's amazing that someone can put that together, and for all those people that are just out there going, what's next in life, that are really turned that made those questions like me. It's like, hey, I got out of the military. I'm like, what's next in life? And I decided to move to Portland. I moved to Portland, and I had no idea how crazy it was going to be once I got there because Trump became president. Now, I swear that was a spectacle. If you want to see, people go full blown, just mass hysteria over nothing, Trump became president. We have to march and we have to do stuff and we have to throw things and we have to have a temper tantrum. It's like, I will no, like I have to walk away. And I remember after a couple of years, because the only reason I went to Portland had nothing to do with the people. It had everything to do with that. I wanted to play I wanted to play piano, and I wanted to do tattoos, and I wanted to snowboard. Really, I wanted to talk shit. I wanted to go to school and go into the philosophy department and say, hey, all you assholes that have been sitting in a box your whole life, you do realize that there's a big fat world out there. And you can go see what's up with that. You don't just have to sit in here and read books. And I realized real quickly that there was a whole nother, military style hierarchy of government that goes on in that world where, even the teachers just walk around with their heads down, scared shitless that they don't want to piss off the wrong administrator. It's like, dude, if I wanted this type of mental bullshit, I would have gone to, I would have just done something stupid and gotten pulled in prison, because that's what your modern academic world is like now. And I don't say that to be a douche or to say, if you're trying to better yourself and educate yourself, I say go ahead and educate yourself, but don't indoctrinate yourself with these bullshit ideas of, you need our bachelor degree, pay us umpteen billions of dollars for something you could have learned in a YouTube video in 5 fucking seconds. I mean, that's really how simple this is right now. So, well, we're coming up on that hour. And I'm so glad if you guys are sitting here and you guys want to chat or you guys want to send me a video for me to look at, I have no problem checking it out. And I'm going to go ahead and play an outro here real quick. I'm going to go, and the way that I play stuff is there's a guy out here. He's called Tom Bailey, and he's got a bunch of backing tracks that, it's just simple stuff. And if you're trying to learn how to play something, like I was trying to learn how to play guitar and play guitar solos. And I found this really cool device. Not that device. And it's an old device, but it's a MIDI guitar. They got a lot of new ones now, but this old one was pretty fun, and I just picked it up off of Amazon. It was like super easy, and it's super fun. It's chill. It's a MIDI guitar that I can hook up to my DAW system. Actually, we're going to take this guy off. We are done with the thinking cap. Woo! Thinking cap is over. And sorry if that was too crazy for your ears, but yeah, this is just a MIDI setup on a keyboard, like not a keyboard, but on a guitar that has like little strings that you can pluck, and it sounds exactly like an electric guitar. It's pretty freaking cool. And so what I usually do is I go up here to YouTube and I'll play a video that's just a backing track, and then I'll just play over the top of it. And I always give credit where credit's due. Tom Bailey did an amazing job. There's over like almost 1,000, like 1,022 songs that he just put together. They're simple songs. They only last a couple minutes, but man, they're just so cool. That all being said, I'm going to play a little bit piano, play a little guitar. I'm going to get out of your hairs, and I want you guys to think about that. And if you guys can think of anything, send me a whisper, send me any information you want, and say, hey, guess what? I think your AI theory is great, but you're missing out on this. Or, hey, you know what? I think you're full of shit, and I think you're dumb. Guess what? I'm fine with that. I am fine with that. In this stream, there is no such thing as hate speech. There's no such thing as it. Okay, because I think there's no such thing as hate speech in anybody's chat section. And if you're going to sit there and ban people from saying certain things that offend you, then you are the child, right? You've chosen not to grow up. You are what Jordan Peterson has called the 2-year-old. Okay, and not a 2-year-old as in, hey, I'm trying to make fun of you or talk down to you. He's actually telling you that you are 2 years old. That 2-year-olds act like that. And I didn't get what I want, I'm throwing a fit. And so if you're going to throw a fit, then you're going to be held accountable for that fit. Simple as that. And so when someone says, oh, hate speech is someone throwing a fit, I was like, is it though? Is it? And being held accountable, I think, is one of those things where you don't have to, hurt somebody. You can just remind them that they're a 2-year-old. It's like, hey, I don't have time for 2-year-old trolls. Later. Next. So, all right, let's see what we got. Once again, I just sort of throw this stuff up randomly, and I play behind here with my DeLorean because, Time Dad Alpha and shit. And let's see, what key are we playing in this one? Got some acoustic lounge backy tracks. All right, this sounds like it's going to be nice and easy. All right. What's going on here? What's going on? I swear if it starts changing here in a second, I'm going to get a little bit miffed. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for hanging out for this hour. I really appreciate it. It's a wonder and an amazement to talk to people about things that I don't think are brought effectively to the table. But at the same time, I will never take any of your freedoms away, ever. I want everyone to do exactly what they're meant to do. Do you the best way that you can, all right? And other than that, I wish you guys a wonderful and happy day, and I will see you tomorrow.